For activity number 4, you're going to need this pink paper along with this white one with dotted lines indicating that you're going to be doing some cutting and pasting for this. So I'm going to make a couple of suggestions to you. Number 1 is that you use pencil. And number 2 is that you do not cut all of these out. You cut them and work on them one at a time, because if you cut them all out and you lose the pieces and you don't know which ones you're on, then you're going to be making more work for yourself. So strongly advise you do it that way. So we're going to do a little review first. You're going to make sure your first and last name is on here because you are turning this one in. And obviously you're watching the screencast. So we've talked about two complements that follow action verbs, and those are direct object and indirect objects. And I'm going to use the abbreviations because that's what I want you to get familiar with, but make sure that you don't just tell me D-O and I-O. You have to know what the letters stand for. And then the complements that go with a linking verb are PA for predicate adjective and predicate noun. And what you're going to be doing is sorting sentences according to the sentence patterns that go with their complements. So the sentence pattern that goes with the direct object is subject plus action verb plus direct object. And we ask the question whom or what when we're looking for a direct object. If I said Mrs. Culleton gave what? Mrs. Culleton gave candy. Then that's the direct object. We could have a sentence pattern that goes with an indirect object. We'd start with a subject and action verb. We always look for the direct object first, and then if there's an indirect object left in between, we ask the question to whom or what or for whom or what. Okay? For a predicate adjective and a predicate noun, we're looking for subject plus linking verb plus predicate adjective, in which case our predicate word goes back and describes the subject, subject plus linking verb plus predicate noun, in which it goes back and renames it. And I'm going to put the arrows on both sides here because we said that with a predicate noun, you could flip the order to make it work. Our 2 criteria, how do we know if it's a linking verb? Well, number 1, the first criteria is it has to be on this list here. In your notebook, you should have this list of linking verbs. It's got to be one of the 18 that we need to memorize. And then our second criteria is that it must link back to the subject in some way, either to describe it or to rename it. So take a minute, list some action verbs: ran, play, hit, scream. Okay, and then list the 18 linking verbs. I want you to try to do it from memory. If not, then you can get your list out. But remember, we've got the first 8 that we just have to know: am, is, are, was, and were, be, being, and been. And then we have 5 that go with this mnemonic: grabs, grow, remain, appear, become, and seem. And then we had 5 that go with our 5 senses. And remember, we're looking at how something looks, how it feels, how it smells, how it tastes, and sounds. And remember, we could put sounded or sound or sounds, look, looks, looked, feel, felt, feels. So tense doesn't matter. It's still a linking verb. All right, on the back of this paper, then, you're going to see a chart that has the 4 sentence patterns. And what you're going to do is pick a sentence, and you're going to figure out what sentence pattern it goes with. So I'm going to do a couple with you, and then I'll show you what you need to do. So I'm just going to start with this first one. It says, use the markings we've done in class to help you identify the sentence pattern for each sentence. So we're going to highlight and bracket and label and do all those things. And then cut out the square, and I'm going to tell you, you only need a little dot of glue in the middle to make it stick. So if you put these together, if I put these in order, you probably see it tells a little bit of a story. You know, I like to write stories, but I'm just going to start with this one. It was a long day with a sweet ending. Sounds like the end of my story, but I see a prepositional phrase with a sweet ending, so I'm going to ignore that right now. And I'm going to look for my subject. My subject here looks like it's it. It is the subject. And I'm going to look for my verb. I see the verb was. I'm getting really good at recognizing that was is a linking verb. That means I'm working with one of these two sentence patterns. If I have a linking verb, then I know there is going to either be a predicate adjective or a predicate noun. So I'm looking for something that goes back and either describes it or renames it. Now I might say it was long, but it doesn't say it was long. Long here describes day, a long day. And a day is a noun, so I know this has to be a predicate noun. It was a long day, it was. Remember, with a predicate noun, you can flip the order. Okay, so I'm going to cut just this one sentence out and glue just this one sentence under the sentence pattern subject plus linking verb plus predicate noun. Now I'm going to tell you one little dot of glue is all you need. That's it. Look at that. And it will stick. If you put too much glue in, what's going to happen is you're probably not going to get this activity done in one day, and it's going to spill all over the sides, and then you're going to have a big old mess. All right, I'm going to go down this way. The next one says, to Mrs. Culleton's annoyance, the cashier gave her the wrong change. I feel like this is a Starbucks run. I don't know. Let's see, I see a preposition to. It's not an infinitive because Mrs. Culleton isn't a verb, so it must be a prep phrase. To Mrs. Culleton's annoyance. Now I'm going to look for my subject. Who is the sentence about? It's about a cashier. And what did the cashier do? The cashier gave. That's definitely an action verb. I can see this happening. She gave. Well, now I'm going to look for my direct object first. Since I have an action verb, I know it's going to be one of these two sentence patterns. So to find the direct object, I'm going to ask whom or what? What did the cashier give? The cashier gave change, money, the wrong change. Okay, and now I still see some words in between, so now I'm going to go see, is there an indirect object? To whom? She gave the change to whom? She gave the change to her. So I have an indirect object, and so I'm going to cut this one out and glue it right here. That fits the sentence pattern, subject plus action verb plus do plus io. Again, watch the glue. Little, oops, just a, heck, there we go. Just a little dot. That's all you need, and it won't spill over the sides. All right, next. I'm going to try and help you find one of each, so give me 1 second. All right, let's look at this one. They were relaxed and ready for the next day. So I see a prepositional phrase, for the next day. And let's see, my subject here is they. And what is the verb? Were. Am, is, are, was, were. It's on my linking verbs list. So were is the linking verbs. So I know I'm either working with a predicate adjective or a predicate noun here. Well, it's describing how they were. They were relaxed. That describes them. That's not a noun. and they were ready. So this one has 2 predicate adjectives. So I'm going to put my little dot of glue here. That's all I need. And there we go. All right, let me see if I can find one with a direct object for you. Oh, okay. Ooh, this one's got a Greek allusion too. With a Herculean effort, Mrs. Culleton allowed Mrs. Curator to go ahead of her. So I see a couple of phrases in here to get rid of. I see with a Herculean effort. I see to, but instead I see a verb. So to go must be an infinitive. And then I see of her. So now I'm going to go back and look at what's left. Mrs. Culleton allowed Mrs. Curator. So my subject looks like it's Mrs. Culleton. What did she do? Allowed. If I wasn't sure if that was a linking or action verb, I can go look at my linking verb list. I don't see allowed on there, so it must be action. Okay, and since I have an action verb, I'm going to go to my first complement, the direct object, and ask whom or what. Mrs. Culleton allowed whom? Mrs. Culleton allowed Mrs. Curator. And there are no words left in between, so I must be done with that. This one follows the sentence pattern, subject plus action verb plus direct object. All right, so you are going to continue on your own. If someone near you is working on the same activity, I don't mind you working together, but make sure that you're really thinking about this. You have a quiz coming up soon over this idea, and we are going to start adding a new concept to this in the next couple of lessons, where you're going to be looking at putting verbals in the mix. So right now we're only looking at just regular nouns, regular adjectives, but we're going to start talking about verbals soon. Again, if you have any questions or need help, make sure you ask.